The sky above the black exclusion zone was cloudless, colorless. Not blue. Not gray. Just faded. As if the air itself refused to reflect anything too alive. Mira Holt stood by the gate with her hands behind her back, spine straight, boots rooted in dry, cracking dirt. She didn't blink. Not while the alien delegation stepped out of their shuttle. Not when the cameras began transmitting. Not even when Silverith, commander of the Carrick's survival elite, approached with that usual, dismissive smile. He looked her over once, from the scars on her forearms to the simple belt knife on her hip. "This is your escort?" he asked, tone laced with condescension. "She doesn't even wear armor." Mira met his gaze. "Armor won't help where we're going." The translators rendered her tone flawlessly. Flat. Cold. Silverith turned to the Accord officials behind him. "We've bested the frost plains of Rivas. The fire caves of Tushul. Earth will be educational." "Earth won't teach you," Mira said, already walking toward the gate. "It buries." The Carrick's team, 6 elite operatives, obsidian armor gleaming, each carrying advanced sensory packs and kinetic rifles, followed. They moved like wolves, fluid, silent. Confident. Mira moved like she'd already buried them. At the gate, 2 Terran soldiers stood stiffly by the biometric panel. One offered Mira a nod. The other keyed in the unlock code. With a grinding metallic groan, the massive steel doors parted. Wind gusted from the forest. Not strong, but wrong. It smelled of wet soil, rotting leaves, and something older. Something primal. A hush fell. Even the Accord delegates stopped speaking. Somewhere in the treeline, a crow cawed once, harsh and too loud. Mira stepped inside without waiting. The Carricks hesitated. "Commander," one of his own whispered in their guttural dialect, "why does the air sting?" Silverith brushed him off. "It's phenomenal fear. Psychological tactics." But even he glanced once at the dead trees near the gate, bark peeled, blackened by something unclassified. They entered. The first hour was uneventful. Trees stood like sentries, bark scarred, branches crooked. No birds. No rustling. The Carricks murmured among themselves, scanning with multispectral lenses. Nothing pinged. Mira walked ahead, not checking her map once. She didn't carry one. "You've memorized the terrain?" Silverith asked, pushing through thorns that clung too long to his sleeve. "No. It changes." "Impossible." She stopped, turned, and met his gaze. "You think it's a forest. It isn't. It's a wound that never closed." She turned again and pressed on. The Carricks followed, slower now. At midday, they reached a clearing by a shallow creek. Mira knelt, cupped the water in her palm, sniffed. "Didn't drink." "Rest here," she said. "Eat. Don't step past the stones." The Carricks laughed, low and rough. "Stones?" But she said no more, just sat on a moss-covered log and chewed dried jerky from a cloth pouch. She didn't offer them any. Silverith paced near the creek, glancing at the stones lining the edge like a broken jaw. "Why the boundary?" he asked. Mira shrugged. "Saw something once. Tall. Wrong-shaped. It stepped past the stones and didn't leave tracks. Next day, the water turned black." The youngest Carrick's warrior scoffed. Mira looked at him. "You won't die fast. That's the problem." Dusk came without warning. The sun dimmed, not set. Just faded out behind a mist that rose too quickly to be natural. The trees turned into silhouettes. The cold came with it, dense, heavy, like a wet blanket thrown over their lungs. "Camp here," Mira said, setting down a small pack and pulling out a tarp. Silverith blinked. "Here?" "We passed multiple defensible ridgelines. Higher ground. Higher ground is breeding ground. Stay low. Stay surrounded." One of the Carricks, eyes narrowed, muttered, surrounded by what? She didn't answer. They sat up tense, triangular and sterilized. Mira didn't have one. She lay on her back beneath a dense cluster of thornbrush. As the mist thickened, night swallowed the sounds. No insects. No rustling. No wind. Just silence. Until something snapped. Soft. A twig. Mira sat up. No movement. No sound again. She turned her head, eyes adjusting. Her hand drifted toward her belt, fingers closing over the knife handle. A silhouette shifted just beyond the camp perimeter. Bipedal. Thin. Then gone. Inside the tents, the Carracks were unaware. Except one. The youngest warrior, Rallick, stepped out, unzipping his tent with a hiss. He looked around, confused. His helmet was off. He whispered something in his native tongue. Then walked toward the trees. Mira stood. "Rallick," she said, voice low but firm. "Stop." He didn't. She moved fast, no sound, no crunch of twigs. Reached him just as his foot crossed the boundary of stones near the tree line. She grabbed his arm. Ice cold. Pupils dilated. "Something's whispering," he muttered. "I can't." Then a sound. Wet. Slipping. Not near. Not far. Mira pulled him back. The moment his foot left the moss, the whispering stopped. Rallick collapsed, shaking. She looked past the trees. Nothing moved. But the silence pulsed. By morning, Rallick was gone. His tent unzipped. His boots still inside. No struggle. Just gone. The Carracks searched the area, scanners wide open. No traces. No heat. No prints. Silverith faced Mira, eyes flaring with anger. "What took him?" "I don't know." "You've lived here. You must know." "I know better than to assume anything." "This is sabotage," he hissed. "You're misleading us." Mira turned slowly, walked to the creek. From its edge, she picked up something. Rallick's shoulder patch. She held it up. It was wet. But not with water. "Keep walking," she said. "We're not past the friendly zone yet." The morning mist clung low and heavy, curling around their boots like something alive. The sun tried to break through but failed, its light pale and directionless. Rallick's disappearance had rattled the team. Not one of them spoke as they broke camp. Silverith paced, glancing at the treetops, his fingers twitching near the grip of his sidearm. The usual confidence in his stride was gone, replaced by calculation. He was measuring every shadow. Mira led without comment, knife still at her belt, stride steady. No urgency. No fear. "You're too calm," one of the Carracks muttered behind her. "We lost a warrior." "You think this is loss?" she replied without turning. That was warning. They crossed a dry gully around mid-morning. The terrain was changing, more fungal growth, less underbrush. Spores floated visibly in the air, glowing faint blue. Mira pulled a thin cloth over her face. The Carracks didn't. "You should cover up," she said. "We are immune to most toxins," Silverith replied. "Those aren't toxins. They're triggers." "For what?" She looked at him. "Your own mind." By noon, one of the soldiers, Tarek, began muttering to himself. He waved at something invisible ahead of him. "Do you see that shape?" he asked no one in particular. Mira didn't answer. "It's like a woman," he said. "She's holding a light." Silverith barked, "Fall in." "Ignore it." But Tarek staggered forward, pushing between branches, sweat pouring down his face. "She's walking away, I have to." Then he screamed. Not in pain, but in surprise. And vanished into the brush. They rushed after him. Mira got there first. She crouched beside a patch of disturbed soil, already crawling with tiny white insects. Tarek's footprints ended mid-stride. No blood. No body. Only his helmet, still recording, the HUD flickering with static. Where did he go? Another Carex asked. Mira touched the soil. Warm. Breathing. She stood and wiped her hand on her pant leg. He didn't walk away. He was taken. Silveritha's voice lowered. By what? She shook her head. Not everything here leaves a name. They kept moving. The forest pressed closer. Birdsong returned, briefly, sharp, shrill, repeating in odd patterns. It mimicked their own words back to them. At one point, Silverith froze as something repeated his earlier command, fall in. With perfect pitch, but too slow, like the voice of a dying machine. No one spoke after that. Around dusk, the terrain dipped into a low basin. Dead trees, stripped of bark, rose like skeletal fingers. The smell changed, metallic, cloying. A strange fog hovered waist-high. Visibility dropped. This is a bad place, Mira said. We keep moving, Silverith ordered. She didn't argue. She only drew her knife. They passed through single file. A clicking sound echoed through the basin. Mechanical? Insectoid? It came from all directions and none. The fog pulsed with each sound. A soft splash ahead. The lead Carex stopped. There's a pool, he said. Black water. Looks deep. Mira stepped beside him. The water was still. Too still. Its surface didn't ripple even as wind tugged at their cloaks. She pointed at the far bank. See that? Skull. 3 of them, actually. They stared. No scavengers had touched the bones. No moss. Just clean, polished white. Silverith stepped forward. We'll go around. Mira nodded. Stay clear of reflections. Why? Because you're not the only one looking back. That night, the camp was silent. Tents clustered tighter than before. Mira didn't sleep. She sat by the dying embers of a small fire, staring into the woods. Silverith joined her, dropping beside the flames with a grunt. You're enjoying this. No. You smile when they vanish. I smile when ego dies. He said nothing for a while. Then, what are you, Mira Holt? She looked at him. Born here. Raised past the wall. My mother was a rewilding engineer. My father taught me to track by sound alone. I survived my first solo trek at age 8. Watched a bear kill a man when I was 10. Shot my first wraith cat when I was 12. Your people lived in the zone? We built around it. Then one day, the zone built itself. He studied her face. You enjoy being feared. No. But I do enjoy being underestimated. Before dawn, another scream cut through the dark. Everyone rushed out. The last remaining scout, Herrick, was standing motionless just outside the camp, eyes wide, breathing fast. What did you see? Silverith demanded. Herrick didn't blink. Rallick, he whispered. I saw Rallick. He was, in the trees. That's impossible. He looked, changed. Pale. Smiling. He said nothing. Just stood there. Where? Herrick raised a shaking hand. They all turned. The trees looked the same. But one had fresh claw marks. 6 deep gouges, chest high, across its bark. Mira knelt, touched the grooves. Not animal. Then what? She stood slowly. Rallick didn't vanish. He was remade. By morning, Herrick was gone too. No tracks. No signs of struggle. Only his boots, upright, empty, and filled with black feathers. Silverith didn't speak. He simply began packing. Mira walked up beside him, arms folded. Still think we're a soft species? He didn't look at her. You let this happen. I warned you. You walked anyway. The two remaining warriors stood nearby, silent, watching her. One of them finally asked, "Do you fear this place?" Mira turned to him. "No. I remember it." She started walking again, into the trees. The Carracks followed, quieter now, stripped of arrogance, carrying silence on their backs. They didn't ask where she was leading them. They were afraid to know. They moved without speaking now. Mira led, her steps sure and silent. Behind her, the last two Carrack soldiers trudged with shoulders hunched, weapons no longer drawn, useless tools in a place that didn't fight fair. Silverith, once so composed, walked differently now. Lighter on his feet, eyes always scanning. The forest had shaped him too. They passed through a grove where the trees grew too close together. Their bark pulsed faintly in the half-light, as if breathing. A thick vine hung from one, gently swaying despite the still air. Mira whispered, "Don't touch the vines. They remember warmth." One of the soldiers glanced up. His foot caught on a root, stumbled, but caught himself before reaching out to steady. Good, she thought. Finally learning. They broke into a clearing near dusk. No sun. Just dim grayness pressing through the leaves. In the center stood a monolith of stone, cracked and worn, covered in strange geometric carvings, spirals within spirals. At its base, a single, rusted Terran beacon, half buried and long dead. "What is this?" Silverith asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. "A marker. The last one we ever placed." He walked toward it slowly, brushing moss from the surface. Why abandon it? Because whatever this place was, it didn't want names. Mira crouched, running fingers through the soil. Not to search. Just to listen. "We're close now," she said. Silverith stood. Close to what? To the truth. To the edge. He turned. Edge of what? She looked up at him. Understanding. They made camp near the stone. No fire. No lights. Just cold rations and the sound of wind weaving through the branches like a whispered warning. The two soldiers slept lightly, heads jerking at every sound. Silverith sat near Mira, not asking for warmth, not offering words. But eventually, he broke the silence. "We simulate danger, you know," he said. "Back home. We train in environments designed to break us." She didn't respond. "I've walked through infernos. Climbed across freezing windswept cliffs on hostile moons. Fought beasts bred to kill." Still, Mira said nothing. He continued. "But it wasn't real. The ground didn't hate us. The wind didn't whisper names." She looked at him now. "And you think it does here?" He nodded, slowly. She spoke quietly. "Because it does." Silverith stared at his gloved hands. "You said once that the real predators weren't the animals." "That's right." "Then what is?" She glanced toward the trees. "Memory. Place. The parts of Earth we buried so deep we forgot, they remember." Sometime before dawn, the last two soldiers were gone. No sound. No movement. Just an absence. Mira and Silverith stood at the edge of the camp, staring at the ground where they'd lain. Their gear remained. Weapons untouched. Boots full of ash. "They were next," Mira said simply. Silverith asked nothing. He just watched the trees. "They weren't taken by force," she continued. "This place doesn't kill the same way twice." He looked at her. "So why are we still here?" She tilted her head. "Because we haven't broken yet." A low vibration passed under their feet, barely noticeable. Like the world exhaling. Mira turned. "Time to finish this." They hiked uphill for the next hour, the terrain sloping subtly until the trees began to thin. The light didn't return, but the pressure did, thick air pressing into lungs, into thought. Mira could feel it. So could Silverith. His steps faltered. "We're near the threshold," she said. "Threshold? You came here to test survival. This is the answer." They crested the rise. Beyond it stretched a hollow basin filled with black grass and bone-pale stones. At its center stood a shape. Not a creature. Not a person. Just a mass of shifting angles, like a shadow trying to become real. Silverith stared. "What is that?" Mira's voice lowered. "Reflection. Of what you brought. Of what you are." The shape moved without moving, folding, shifting inward. It cast no shadow. Made no sound. Silverith stepped back. "I don't want to face it." Mira didn't move. "Then it will follow you. For the rest of your life." He looked at her. "Have you faced yours?" She nodded. He hesitated. Then walked forward. Each step felt harder. His armor seemed heavier. The air burned. Mira watched him go until he stood less than 20 feet from it. The shape pulsed. Silverith dropped to his knees. His hands gripped his helmet. "Make it stop," he whispered. Mira called out, "It's not hurting you. It's showing you." His scream echoed across the basin. When he woke, he was lying beside her near the stone monolith again. The sky hadn't changed. Still colorless. Still dead. He sat up, gasping. "You left me there." Mira didn't answer. I saw them. All of them. The ones we left behind on training moons. The simulations we failed. The lives we erased. I felt their breath. His voice cracked. She finally spoke. "Then it worked." He looked at her, eyes raw. "What is this place?" "Earth," she said. "The real Earth." He laughed, bitter and small. "And you walk it like it's yours." Mira looked toward the trees. "Because it is." They returned in silence. No path. No signal. But the gate appeared when they needed it to. As if the land allowed them to leave only after it had its fill. When they stepped through, the world changed again. Sound returned. Sky brightened. A drone buzzed overhead. Someone was calling Mira's name. But she didn't look back. Silverith followed, face hollow. An Accord ambassador approached. "Commander, your report. Did your team survive?" Silverith looked at him. "No. I'm sorry to hear that." "Then the trial was a failure?" He shook his head slowly. "No. It was, correction." He looked back at Mira. "Earth doesn't test you. It unmakes what you think you are." The ambassador turned to her. "And what did you learn?" Mira adjusted her pack, walking past without answering. But as she passed the threshold, she whispered. "You met the friendly ones." And the gate slammed shut behind her. Mira stood at the edge of the debriefing chamber, arms crossed, eyes focused on nothing. The room buzzed with screens and voices, but none of it touched her. A team of analysts pored over feeds pulled from the surviving beacons. They were frustrated. Most of the data was corrupted. Static. Interference. Patterns that didn't make sense. "We can't read this footage," one tech said. "Half of it loops in on itself. Like the forest swallowed the signal." "It did," Mira replied flatly. Across the glass partition, Silverith sat alone. Stripped of armor, head lowered, hands motionless in his lap. He hadn't spoken since they returned. No questions. No defiance. Just silence. A diplomat approached Mira with a pad in hand. "He still won't give a formal statement." "He's still in there," she said. "Just not the same version. We need closure, Lieutenant. The Accord requires a full report." She turned to him, voice level. "You sent off-worlders into Earth's oldest trauma expecting a controlled trial. What you got was something older than war, older than fear. That's not a report. It's the only one you'll get. Later that night, Mira sat alone in the rewilded garden atop the Terran diplomatic tower. Wind swept over tall native grasses. The stars were dim, choked by atmospheric haze, but she knew where every constellation used to be. Footsteps approached. Silvereth. He looked different without his armor. Smaller. Human, almost. Mind if I sit? She gestured to the stone bench. He lowered himself slowly, like his body still carried something too heavy to name. I watched the feeds again, he said. Or tried to. I know. They don't hold. He looked at her. Why? Because the zone doesn't want to be understood. It only wants to be remembered. He was quiet a moment. Then, there was a moment, in the basin, where I felt like I wasn't inside my body. You weren't. I saw myself arrogant, polished, weaponized. Then I saw the opposite. Raw. Wounded. Afraid. She turned to him. And that's the version that walked out. He nodded. I used to think survival meant strength, he said. Now I think it means letting yourself break. And keep going anyway. She looked back at the wind-swayed grass. That's the human way. The next day, Mira stood in front of the United Terran Assembly. Diplomats, generals, alien observers. A sea of faces pretending to be neutral. This hearing is to determine Earth's continuing role in survival advisory to the Accord, the moderator said. You escorted a trial group. Only one returned. Explain what happened. Mira scanned the room. Earth happened. Murmurs. The moderator frowned. Be specific, Lieutenant. I led them into the black exclusion zone, she continued. They were equipped. Arrogant. Believed survival was a test of muscle and sensor tech. And? They failed to understand. Earth doesn't test you by what you fight. It tests you by what it makes you remember. A blue-skinned diplomat raised a hand. But this was a controlled zone, was it not? Regulated by Terran biological teams? Mira shook her head. The zone outgrew control decades ago. It became something else. Defined something else. Living. Listening. An ancient. The room fell quiet. One Carrick's observer stood. Our commander returned changed. He claims he saw visions. Mira nodded. Visions are just memory sharpened by fear. Why did he survive? Because he let go of who he thought he was. After the hearing, she found Silvereth by the skybridge, overlooking the city. The buildings shimmered with clean lines, artificial wind gardens, soft lights. A false calm. He didn't turn as she approached. You spoke well, he said. They won't believe most of it. They don't have to. We know. She joined him at the rail. Would you go back? He was quiet, then answered. Not as I was. But maybe, someday, yes. Mira smiled faintly. You're not the same man who walked into that forest. He turned to her. And you, are you the same woman who walked out of it years ago? Her smile faded. No. He watched her closely. What did you leave behind? She didn't answer. Just stared into the night. Silvereth placed a hand on the rail. I used to think humans were the weakest link in the Accord. Always emotional. Always chaotic. But now I think, you're the only ones who survived evolution without forgetting what it costs. Mira looked at him. Because Earth never let us. Weeks passed. Silvereth returned to Carrick's space. Quietly. No ceremony. But whispers spread. Of a warrior who trembled before shadows. Of humans who walked places others wouldn't dare. Of a planet that taught fear without ever raising a weapon. Mira received a message from him once. Just a line. We built warriors. You built predators. She never replied. Instead, She requested a solo transfer back to the exclusion perimeter. No team. No cameras. Just her. They approved it. She packed lightly, knife, compass, no tracker. And she walked. Past the gate. Into the trees. The wind welcomed her.